Right, morning. Welcome, everybody. I think it's Thursday. I'm not too sure, but time is killing me softly. Sure, or maybe not so softly. So the topic of the day, murder. What a topic to have on Wisdom's Chats. Yeah, as I was thinking about this, going through a couple of things. English is a funny language, as we have discovered, and some of us speak it stranger than others. And get our tongues tied and get convoluted and all the rest of it. But, we have phrases like make a killing and those sorts of things. So murder, what is murder all about? It's a topic. We've got two guys now who are dictionary experts and a third one who's a pretender. So we'll have to head across to them and see where they want to take this discussion. So Ed, I think this topic was sparked by you, if I'm not mistaken, yesterday. So I'm going to hand it over to you and see what you have to say on the subject.
Yeah, I must learn to keep my mouth shut, really. When you said a murder of crows, which is the collective noun for crows, it suddenly made me think that actually the word murder must have other meanings as well, originally, because why would you call it a murder of crows? Because most of the collective nouns have a reason behind them. Although I can't think why it's a tabernacle of bakers, but never mind. And of course, a murder, we often use it, as you said, killing. I mean, murder means an unpleasant state of affairs. The January sales were murder, or merde, as Trevor's put in the chat. And of course, murder also means to utterly defeat. I'll murder you. And it can also mean spoiled by a bad performance or mispronunciation. So, Ivan murdered something the other day in one of the chats. I think it was in the American one, wasn't it? Where you couldn't pronounce your words.
Probably I frequently murder things. So yeah, it's unfortunately I could be locked up one of these days for destroying the language completely.
And which is really strange, isn't it? When you think about it, murder in the sort of the legal sense, which is unlawful killing, is an awful thing. It's a really, it's probably the worst thing you can do is to take another human being's life. And yet we use that word so lightly, or my feet are murdering me. A phrase often used by women because for some reason they buy shoes that aren't comfortable. I don't know why. But yeah, how many times have you heard a woman say, my feet are murdering me? So we make light of it. And then I think the whole thing was kicked off by me saying in the chat, meat was murder, which is a phrase that vegans sometimes use, which I don't like. And then I think it was you, Ivan, that mentioned Jamal Khashoggi being murdered in the Turkish embassy or someone mentioned it, by the state. And that was seen as a horrendous thing. The state murdering one of its own citizens was seen as a horrendous thing. And then I thought, well, what about when America killed General Soleimani in a drone strike? That was the state killing someone, but that didn't seem to be a terrible thing. Well, I thought it was, but presumably most of America didn't think it was a bad thing, and a lot of the Western world didn't think it was a bad thing. And that kind of made me think that murder's only murder if you're on the wrong side. And of course, in the UK, we've had our troubles. In Ireland, the north of Ireland is part of the UK. The south of Ireland is an independent country. It separated in 1921, I think. And the IRA have been waging war against the UK ever since. And they had bombing campaigns. They killed people. I hate violence, but what's the difference between the IRA and the French resistance during the Second World War? They did exactly the same processes. They put bombs under cars, they killed people, but the French resistance are seen as heroes and the IRA are seen as villains. but they're doing exactly the same function. They're killing people in exactly the same way. So I find it a really fascinating subject about when is state killing considered okay and when it's not considered okay. And personally, I think we can't create life. We're really clever. We can put a rocket on the moon. We can send a rocket up and it can land again, which it did yesterday and exploded. We can do all sorts of clever stuff, but we can't put a bunch of chemicals in a test tube, zap it with a load of electricity and create life. Man cannot create life, and therefore we shouldn't take it away. So that's my thoughts, a really heavy subject, but also a light-hearted subject. You think of all the entertainment we get from murder mysteries. There's some villages that I wouldn't live in because the murder rate there, according to TV, is so high. And my final thought is, if ever I commit a murder, before I do it, I'm going to kill all the dogs in the area because the bodies are always found by someone walking their dog.
It's all the dog's fault. Yeah, the world is going to the dogs. I don't know, but yeah, it is interesting how as humans we seem to have this fascination with death, and as you said, murder mysteries and the like, and I think of the CSI crime type forensic serials and things as well. Seem to fascinate us as a species, and it's an interesting question you've posed there. So, right, Lee, welcome back. Straight into the fray. Can you survive this, or have we killed it completely?
I thought you would give me some leeway, but that's it's not happening. So I'm glad Edward went first. Went first because I think that he covered everything from the light to the dark, literally. Yeah, I must say this. It's not actually an intellectual exercise. I think, you talk about triggers, and murders is not a distant concept in my life. Christopher and I were on holiday in the UK. Christopher had gone for a conference and we had taken an extra week or so just to walk to London. That was literally all we did. Bridges and parks, shall I say? It was more bridges and parks that we walked. But it was a blissful time, and in the midst of it, we got a call to say that that Christopher's cousin had been murdered on his farm. It was not what you would call, it wasn't a politically motivated murder. It was, they wanted money out of the safe. There was no money in the safe, and they killed him in front of his daughter. So it's a very real thing in our lives. And in this case, the perpetrators were found. We often complain about police here in this country and their inefficiency, but we experienced incredible, dogged police work that tracked the perpetrators down through intricate police work, tracking cell phones and all kinds of things. They eventually, they did find the actual perpetrators, and they were tried, and they are in jail. But the wounds of that event remain very, very painful. Somebody gone in such a violent and unnecessary and painful way. So I have to say that because that's what comes to mind. when that word comes up for me.
Thanks. Yeah, it is, you know, in the harsh reality of the world, it is a very violent word, isn't it? And I think it can conjure up those terrible thoughts and memories, and many of us have been touched by that sort of tragedy in this country, and it's sad, and not only in this country. I mean, it happens around the world, as Ed was saying, you know, and it's always happened around the world. So, yeah, it's a tough thing to have to dredge up those. So I appreciate you sharing that memory with us. So, Asif, what have you walked into this morning? A very different wisdoms chat, but welcome nonetheless. Yeah. So.
Thank you. I always try to be on time, but for some strange reason, I couldn't log into this particular meeting through my laptop. So I was about to give up. Then I said, let me try the mobile, and that worked. So it's obviously something to do with my Zoom application on my laptop. So what have I walked into? You know, I walked into Edward talking about the killing of Soleimani. So unless somebody's going to correct me, are we talking about murder? Okay, yeah, well, when Edward was talking, I was reminded of two things. One is the famous saying which says, might is right. Some of you might have heard that, might is right. And the other thing is, history is always written by the victors, not necessarily truth seekers. So, and we found that, you know, all across, you know, when I talk to people, you know, and say that, okay, 9/11, what happened? And we talk about, you know, the buildings coming down, the aircrafts hitting them and all that. There's so many questions as to how buildings can come down and how a bunch of pilots could have done this, that I'm of the belief that it wasn't done by those bunch of idiots. They don't have the competencies required to pull that off. So, of course, Americans, I don't know if there's an Americans, I don't think there's Americans here in this group, but Americans always get upset when I bring this up. And there's loads of Americans in Bahrain that when I say that I think your government murdered 3,000 people so that they can get some policies passed. So some of them get upset, but there are the minority who say we think that's possible because the Americans have done it before in history. And for instance, the CIA released some classified papers, I think last year, which confirmed that they were responsible for the coup that killed thousands of people in Iran in 1953. So I said, what we'll have to do is we'll have to wait for 50 years when we're all dead and gone, and they'll declassify some papers which say, oh, 9/11, actually, some of us did that. So that is what murder is. It's just like Edward said, you know, it's a matter of perception, and perception is created. Perception is reality, as they say.
Thanks, Asif. Yeah, yeah, we could go down the rabbit hole of conspiracy theories after that, but you know, I agree with you. You know, it is totally a matter of perception, and history is always written by the victors, and often history, you know, disappears. I saw an interesting calculation about how much truth has disappeared over all the years of human written existence with the conquering of countries and environments, and the history of those people that have been conquered, been murdered, been you know, had their lives, but also their history completely wiped out. And you know, what happened?
Yeah, one other thing that I was shocked by recently is you know, there was the ethnic breakdown of people in America, and I was shocked that Native Americans, or the Red Indians, or the Indians as they say, is only 0.7%. I said, what happened to all of them? 0.7%? How did it go down to such a such a low level. It brings questions.
Yeah. Well, talk to the Australians and the Kiwis as well. So yeah, I don't know what happened to their native populations either. But anyway, that's a whole nother discussion as well. So Jasper, you better bring us back to sanity here. I mean, can you do that?
Well, to be honest, morning, if I knew that was a topic, I'd rather just abstain. It's quite a heavy topic, and it's almost difficult to be lighthearted about stuff. And, I'd like to start my day about some positive explorations, and whether it's just theory, but at least it gets the creative juices flowing. So I certainly don't want to go what you keep referring to as a rabbit hole. But I could see some application in a more light-hearted way, because we do use the word killing in in different ways. So someone tells a hilarious joke and someone said, "You're killing me." So it's almost to say, it's too good. I was also thinking in terms of the financial word. The word mort is French for death, and we've got mortgage. So it's death by inflated interests and inflation. Inflation is killing people. So how many people are physically now dying late in their lives because of these manipulations of excessive interest and in inflation, which is then the thing that governments love to do, to just print money with nothing to back it up. So I don't have much more to contribute. I think from the victims, perspective, killing is always associated with something that comes to an abrupt end. It's an untimely end. If I think of the life of Viv, that we know very well, and there's wounds. It never goes away, and you keep on almost speculate what would have been possible if this person just kept living. What would he have accomplished? How would life have been better? And then from the perpetrator's perspective, why do they do it? So I can see governments and most people do it to control other people through fear, and gangsters and these kind of people. But I think there's always also a whole lot of senseless killings that happen because of that moment of anger or pent-up anger that has nothing to do with the victim in front of them. It's just, I've been denied some stuff in my life, and I'm now taking it out on other people. So, but it's really not the kind of topic I want to engage in. So I just stop it at that.
Thanks. But yeah, that is a topic of a different note, and it was. I think look, I think we need to be afraid to tackle any topics on this forum, and it makes us think. It makes us engage. It gives us different perspectives, and it might not be the ideal way to start a morning, but I think. That's what we're about, is getting people to think. So Trevor, what do you think?
You've just stolen what I was going to talk about. That I'm actually quite chuffed with this. To be quite honest, I didn't even want to indulge in the topic of murder because to me, it's one of the vilest of acts, and then it must be one of the vilest of words in the dictionary. So I've never really thought about it in any deep way. But what has struck me about just this little group, that I'm so chuffed with the fact that it doesn't matter who you are, what your thoughts are, what conspiracy theory you may or may not believe in. Here you have a channel where you can actually
express what you're thinking or feeling, and other people can actually interpret that without trying to murder the other guy in the bottom left-hand corner, or the woman in the central pixel. You've got the freedom to actually take this information in and to think for yourself. But I must, as you guys were all talking, I was thinking that almost all civilizations, societies, countries, if you go back into the history, they've all been built and founded upon murder. If you're going to have a look at it, people taken away from others, and it's almost are the weakest on the back foot all the time. And then the other thing that I just wanted to get through, just to help Jasper, I think what this discussion and just focusing on this thing of murder being related to societies and conspiracies, and you need more than one person to have a conspiracy. I think what we're about at Wisdoms is the power of the individual to say no to something like murder. That this all comes down to the power of the individual to know what is right and what is wrong. And one of the things I constantly talk about here is that I believe the whole basis of an individual just surviving and living and being productive on this planet is asking the question, is what I am doing today adding positive value to society, or is what I am doing today taken away from society? And so that I think everything good about society comes back to individuals who are asking that of themselves, and that takes maturity, and that's perhaps what we are sharing as a Wisdom's philosophy. So like Jasper, I wasn't too interested in getting involved in the topic, but it actually relates to everything that we're doing at Wisdoms, in the power of the individual to make a difference in society or to take away from society. My thoughts.
Great, thanks. So yeah, and I think it does. It brings us back down fundamentally to one of our core principles in Wisdoms, and that's the difference maker. You know, and you can make, as Trevor's said, 100%, you can make a difference in a positive way, and you can make a difference in a negative way. And obviously our focus is to do that in the positive. We believe in the positive, but I think it's helping people get to understand that regardless of how they view themselves, they have an impact on somebody else. Whether they believe it or not, there's always somebody that's looking to them to say, ooh, I want to be like him or like her, and oh, wasn't that thing that person did, you know, interesting, and maybe I should try doing it. And unfortunately, so that's, you know, that swings both ways in the world, and you know, I think that's really what we're trying to drive at here, is to get people to think at that level, to say, my actions have consequences, regardless of where I sit in the hierarchy of the world, if there is a hierarchy. You know, you can, Trevor used the analogy quite some time ago about the totem pole of life, and where we stand, you know, where we perceive ourselves to be on that totem pole in life, whether we're at the bottom, you know, somewhere in the middle, or towards the top. It doesn't matter. You know, your actions, and you know, the metaphor of a butterfly flapping its wings on one side of the world, creating a tornado on the other, you know, rings true in this philosophy, and you know, that's what we want people to think about, is my little action here, no matter how small I might believe it is, has a ripple effect, you know, has a knock-on effect, and will impact somebody somewhere around the world, and that could have ongoing consequences that reach far beyond whatever I could have imagined they would have. And I mean, we've seen that with you know, with some of the other discussions that we've had here, and some of the insights that we've got into people's lives. You know, like Ed has said, you know, with some of the work that he does, you know, with the children, and he's used the phrase, and I've commented on it a couple of times before, but I like the concept. He talks about the ripples in the pool, and you know, that little action has a ripple effect, and you know, he said that from time to time, you know, those ripples eventually die away. And I think in the case of people, I think those ripples go on a lot further than we realize, and can have a much longer lasting effect than we realize. And yeah, one doesn't want to be focusing on the negative. Murder is a very challenging topic. You know, Ed spoke about some of the lighter elements of it right up front. So you know, my feet are killing me. Yeah, Trevor.
You know what, I just want to share with those that weren't on the US Wisdom's chat last night. I was struck by the individual who at the end of it actually broke down crying. And my perception of that was that there was just a thankfulness for being able to have a channel to share different thoughts with other people without having any angst or concern or whatever that was thrown into a melting pot, and people could share their views. It was, you could almost see through this person just a disbelief that there was this type of forum to share these type of thoughts. And I saw a huge breakthrough there, which was quite interesting. I don't know if anyone else picked that up and might want to comment on that. I think you were on that forum. Did you?
What was the subject yesterday, Trevor?
People are magic.
Listen, I don't even remember what today's subject is. How can you tell me to remember?
It was about the magic in people, and actually the meeting was what was actually magic. I think it was a fantastic meeting, and everyone contributed in a different way. And I think you're right, Trevor, you know, a forum where you're not judged, where your opinion is of equal value as someone else, where you can have opposing views to someone else, is so liberating, you know. And you and I spar a lot because we know we can take it, whereas with other people we treat them differently because we know that they're not used to that. And I just think it's lovely that people can come in with completely different views and say things. And I think, you know, I was very taken by Lee's story. And it very much showed me that we don't know what's inside other people. So when we say something, we don't know what effect it's had. You know, murder has never touched my life, so I can examine it without any emotion. And Lee, obviously, it's touched her life, and it's got you know, a different meaning to her than it has to me. But yeah, as you say, Trevor, yesterday was an amazing event.
Thanks, Ed. Right, so get on to lighter topics. If you can, join us at midday South African time today. We have the Wisdom's Nigeria Summit. We have 5 hours of fantastic motivational speaking and topics and discussions that are going to happen. I'd say kicking off at GMT +2, 12 midday today. Into Nigeria, we've got, I think, knocking on 70 people already registered for that event, which is absolutely amazing. Really looking forward to a cracker of an event out there, and lots of powerful stuff. So, Lee, we're going to have to toss the ball back into your court to see if you can bring these naughty boys back in line and sort us out with a decent topic for tomorrow morning.
Well, you know, as you've picked up on the small native population, highly reduced native population in the States, and I don't know, a couple of other people mentioned something, and I'm reading a book at the moment, a novel, but the main character grew up in Greenland, has a Newt mother and a Danish father, And so she's straddling these two worlds between an indigenous culture in which she grew up in and the sophisticated European culture. And I think that the topic that I'd like to explore is, what do we learn from indigenous people? Because I think we also talked about perceptions, and we all sitting here have a very industrialized type environment. Asif, I stand to be corrected. You may well come in with some great ideas. I'm hoping you're going to be here tomorrow. So yeah, what are some of the things that we can learn looking through the lens of somebody else's eyes and thinking specifically about indigenous people?
Yeah, that would be a good discussion. Absolutely.
Excellent. Great. Thanks, everybody. Yeah. Another discussion of a difference this morning with wisdoms, and we're looking forward to being indigenous tomorrow. So go out and find out what that means to you, and what you can tap into it. Otherwise, as I said, join us at midday. We're going to have a great session in Nigeria. Looking forward to that one as well. So have a good day further, and we'll see you tomorrow. Go well.